Coronation Street spoilers for Wednesday the 30th of July tease that a shocking revelation will rock ABI Webster's already fragile world as the truth about her affair with Carl, her brother-in-law, is exposed, revealing secrets, betrayals and a painful collision between guilt and passion. It all began under the pretense of ordinary tension. Kevin Webster had grown suspicious for weeks, sensing something wasn't right with Carl. The unease in his gut wasn't unfounded. One night, while walking past the garage, Kevin spotted Carl sneaking out with a stranger, Fiona, into a battered red van that had been parked nearby for days. His instincts kicked in, and he followed the pair at a distance. What he witnessed confirmed his worst fears. Carl and Fiona hotwiring a vehicle from the back of the lot, starting the engine and taking off into the dark. Kevin gave chase but stumbled, hitting the pavement hard as the car peeled away. The injury landed him in the hospital. Cracked ribs and a mild concussion gave him time to think, and time for Carl to scramble. Upon hearing about Kevin's fall, Carl panicked. He visited Kevin under the guise of concern, but when he found out Kevin was awake and slowly recovering, he proposed a deal. Carl promised to keep ABI in the dark about the stolen car and Kevin's discovery, if Kevin stayed quiet about Carl's shady activities. Kevin, disoriented and angry, didn't respond immediately. But the seed had been planted. Back at home, ABI was unraveling in a different way. Kevin's secrecy felt like betrayal. She believed he was lying again, as he'd done before. Restless and resentful, she reached out to Carl. There had always been an undeniable chemistry between them, an emotional connection rooted in chaos and impulsivity. They met at a hotel while Kevin was away at Dev's party. In the dim light of the hotel room, ABI found herself laughing for the first time in weeks. Carl made her feel alive, reckless. It was only after they made love that everything shattered. Carl's phone buzzed. ABI, absent-mindedly checking the screen, froze. The message was from Fiona. It confirmed Carl's cut from the sale of the stolen car, 40%. The cold transaction, the precise percentage, made ABI's stomach turn. She stared at Carl, her mind piecing together the truth she'd refused to see. When confronted, Carl didn't deny it. Instead, he offered explanations: how the car had been sitting abandoned for months, how he and Fiona had a deal, how none of it mattered, because it was all behind them now. ABI recoiled in disgust. She wasn't just angry, she felt used. She had just committed the worst betrayal of her marriage with someone who had been lying to her from the beginning. The Carl she thought she connected with didn't exist. He had manipulated her. And more than that, he had flaunted his crimes right under her nose. Rushing home in tears, ABI found herself face to face with Debbie, who had just returned from celebrating her surprise engagement to Ronnie. Debbie beamed with joy and, seeing ABI's flushed face, tried to lift her spirits. She spoke warmly about love, about second chances, and how Ronnie made her believe in good men again. Her final advice landed like a gut punch: you know, no one will ever love you like Kevin does. You just need to stop running. ABI's heart broke. She wanted to scream, to confess everything. But shame held her tongue. Debbie's words echoed in her mind all night. Kevin had lied, yes, but out of fear, out of hope. She had lied out of lust. Out of selfishness. And Kevin, for all his faults, had always stood by her through the darkest moments of her life. He had raised Alfie as his own. He had loved her even when she didn't love herself. The next day, Kevin returned home from the hospital. ABI, swallowing her guilt, greeted him gently. She didn't mention Carl. She simply apologized for her coldness, thanked him for being strong, and assured him that he was safe now. She told everyone at the Rovers that Kevin was recovering well. It wasn't a full confession, it was a beginning. A whispered signal that she was trying to repair what had been broken. But the past wasn't done with her. That night, lying awake, ABI questioned everything. What kind of woman betrayed her husband for a man like Carl? Could she ever face Kevin again knowing what she had done? Did she deserve forgiveness? Or was she simply trying to erase guilt by doing the bare minimum? Still restless, she sought out Carl once more. She demanded to know why he never told her that Kevin had caught him. Carl shrugged, indifferent. What he revealed next turned her blood cold. Kevin had known. Carl said he had made a deal with him, that Kevin would keep quiet about the stolen car, if Carl never revealed Kevin was already healed from his cancer scare. It was another layer of lies, one that threw ABI into a spiral. Now, the lines were blurred. Kevin had lied. Carl had lied. And she had lied. It was a triangle of betrayal, each side as cracked as the next. But there was one truth that echoed loudest in her chest: Carl was dangerous, and Kevin, for all his flaws, had never manipulated her. ABI tried to walk away. She told Carl she was done, that she wanted no more secrets. But Carl wasn't ready to let go. He kissed her hand, tried to guilt her into silence. She pulled away. What ABI didn't know was that Kevin had already found the hotel receipt. Folded, stained with rain, it had been shoved into the jacket pocket ABI wore the night of her rendezvous. It wasn't just a receipt, it was time-stamped, it had her name, and it told the whole story. Kevin stared at it for hours. He didn't say anything. Not yet. The next morning, ABI came downstairs to find Kevin sitting at the kitchen table, holding the bill. She froze. For a second, she thought of denying it. Saying she went there to meet a friend. Claiming it was for a charity meeting. But she couldn't lie, not again. Kevin looked up. His eyes weren't angry. They were hollow. So, he said quietly, "You want to tell me about it?" ABI opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her chest heaved, her throat tightened. She sat down across from him and said the words that hurt the most. "I made a mistake." Kevin listened, not interrupting. When she was done, he nodded slowly. He said nothing about forgiveness. Nothing about divorce. Just silence. That evening, ABI packed a bag. She wasn't sure if she was leaving for good, or just giving Kevin space. As she stepped out into the cold Weatherfield night, she saw Carl leaning against a lamppost, waiting. She walked past him without a word. Inside, Kevin stood at the window, watching her go. His heart shattered. But even as she disappeared into the dark, part of him still hoped she'd come back. Kevin sat alone at the kitchen table long after ABI left, the hotel receipt still clutched in his hand. The air in the house felt thick, too silent. It was the kind of silence that settled in the bones, the kind that whispered that something fundamental had shifted. He wanted to scream, to smash the coffee mug against the wall, but he didn't. Instead, he poured himself a cup and stared into the black liquid as if it held an answer. Elsewhere in Weatherfield, Carl wasn't as composed. He watched ABI disappear into the fog, hands stuffed in his pockets, jaw clenched. She had changed since that first night. There was a time she'd laughed with him, touched his arm with a kind of reckless joy. Now, there was only disgust in her eyes. And worse than that, pity. Carl never did well with pity. Back at the Rovers, Debbie was in high spirits, still glowing from her engagement news. But when she spotted Kevin the next morning, her smile faltered. His face was hollow, the usual spark in his eyes gone. She invited him for coffee, sensing something was wrong. Kevin finally opened up. Not the full story, not yet, but enough to shake Debbie. He told her that he wasn't sure if his marriage could survive, that ABI had made a mistake she might never be able to undo. Debbie, heartbroken, tried to defend ABI. "You've both been through hell," she said. "You love each other. That should count for something." But Kevin didn't reply. He simply nodded, distant. ABI, meanwhile, had checked into a small room at the Weatherfield Arms. The walls were paper-thin, and the radiator clicked when it heated. But she didn't care. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, memories of Kevin, of Carl, of Alfie flooding her mind. She had ruined everything. When Debbie texted her later that day asking if she was okay, ABI didn't answer. Later that evening, Carl showed up uninvited. He knocked softly, then louder when she didn't respond. "ABI, come on," he said. "Let's talk." She opened the door, not out of forgiveness, but to stop the knocking. Carl stepped in without waiting. He tried to joke, tried to rekindle whatever was left. But ABI had changed. The weight of what she'd done had settled fully now, like cold iron in her chest. She told Carl to leave. When he resisted, she pushed harder. "You're poison," she said, her voice trembling. "And I let you inside my life. That's on me. But I won't do it again." Carl left, but not without a warning. "Don't think Kevin's the saint here. He lied to you too. He played his part." The next day, ABI returned to the house to pick up more clothes. Kevin was home. He didn't ask where she'd been. She didn't tell him. But this time, she didn't avoid him either. "Carl came to see me," she said. Kevin stiffened. "Did you let him in?" "No," she answered. "I told him I was done." He nodded, but his expression didn't change. ABI sat down across from him, for the first time in days. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," she said. "I just want you to know. I don't want Carl. I don't want that life. I want to fix this. I don't know how, but I want to try." Kevin stared at her. Then he asked the one question he hadn't dared to ask. "Did you ever love him?" ABI looked down. "No. I loved the distraction. I loved how easy he made it feel for a minute. But not him. Never him. They didn't hug. They didn't cry. But they sat there for a long time, and that was something." Meanwhile, Debbie, growing concerned, decided to confront Carl herself. She found him at the builder's yard, nursing a pint behind the lorries. She wasted no time. "You're a homewrecker," she spat. "You used her when she was vulnerable." Carl didn't deny it. But he had one final card to play. If Kevin hadn't kept his cancer recovery a secret, ABI wouldn't have been angry. Wouldn't have run. Debbie slapped him. Not hard, but sharp enough to draw a gasp from one of the nearby workers. "You're done here, Carl. Don't come near her again." Carl knew the walls were closing in. At the Rovers that night, ABI arrived unannounced. The pub went quiet for a second, then returned to its hum of clinks and chatter. She approached Jenny at the bar, asked for a glass of water, then turned to the room. "I want to say something," she announced. Steve, Glenda, Amy, and a few others turned toward her. Kevin was in the corner booth. "I made a mistake. I hurt someone who never stopped standing by me. And I don't expect anyone to understand, but I want to be honest. I want to do better." Kevin stood slowly, joined her at the bar. He didn't speak. But his presence was enough. Jenny poured them both drinks. By the week's end, ABI had moved back in, but into the guest room. It wasn't reconciliation yet. It was proximity. A space to start again. She promised to cut all contact with Carl. Kevin, still nursing his own wounds, agreed they needed time. He wasn't ready to forgive, but he was willing to try. And in Weatherfield, sometimes that was the bravest thing anyone could do.